Okay, so let's get on to actual depopulating some higher grade boards. I've got a little bit of a collection here, but most of my boards, the best idea is not to stockpile boards and and build them up and then do them all in one go, because you end up having a giant job. You're much better as you pull out a board out of something, or whatever you scrap out for that day. If you do depopulate your boards, I recommend doing them straight away that day, so to get them out the way. If you start piling them up, depopulating does take a lot of time, especially if you're just doing it by hand. But even if you're doing it with an air gun, it still takes time, because you've still got to sort out all your stuff. So I recommend depopulating boards straight off the bat as soon as you get them out of whatever you scrap them out from. So here we've got just it's kind of a telecom kind of board. Yeah, it's okay. The chips are, average. They're, certainly nothing like vintage or very high end. You don't see, there's not many, there's no BGA chips or anything like that on this board. So, but that's not to say, even though, BGA chips are, what we consider higher grade gold recovery, but that's not to say that these flat packs, don't have as much gold. Maybe by weight they don't, but overall, a lot of them can have just as much gold as you'll get out of a BGA chip. It's just that they, usually are a ceramic kind of thing, and they're just heavier. So by the pound, obviously you're going to get a lot less gold than you would from a BGA chip by the pound. So I find that, even though I do use the air hammer for heavily populated boards with a lot of IC chips, I do find, boards like this a lot easier just to do it by hand. And usually I start off with the small stuff, and but it is important to try and look out for your little codes on the boards, and just to see, just so you know exactly what you're taking off. See, like here you've got, we know these are tantalum capacitors, so you don't even have to look at the code, but you see the little MLCC type thing on top of that on each one, and these really do look like MLCCs. And if you depopulate it any other way other than by hand, you're going to think that they're MLCCs, and you're going to go for palladium and silver. Well, if you look at the code, is it actually going to show? So this top one here, and if you look on the left of that, the code is an L3, and the tantalum capacitor is a C. C stands for capacitor. So if that was an MLCC, that should be a C as well, but it's an L, so that means it's an inductor. And it's very, very deceiving, because if you took, without really looking at that lettering, you'll think that that's an MLCC. And there's a lot of boards, especially on higher grade boards, that don't have the actual coding on there. So, even I would assume that that's just an MLCC, but it's not. In this case, I can see that there's an L, so that is an inductor. So there's no palladium in there, but there is still a little bit silver. And I get asked, well, what if I mix these in with MLCCs? Well, it doesn't really matter in a way, because you just, although you're going to have, you're going to be processing more product to get the, a less amount of palladium, so you're not going to get any palladium out of that. But if you go for the silver recovery after your palladium, then you will get that silver, because there is a bit of silver in each of these MLCC looking inductors. So yeah, so that's the thing. Like I said, if I was just to not pay attention to that lettering and just skim off, that would all go as MLCCs. And my MLCCs, I prefer to just keep them as you know, as pure as possible to what they actually are, MLCCs. So, you know, obviously in every stack of MLCCs there's going to be inductors in there, you know, because you just don't, you know, you can't tell all the time. So in this case, I'm going to take off the tantalum capacitors, and I'll just get them out the way. And so I found that the best way to depopulate by hand is to not, you know, crisscross and do everything, is to keep more focused on each individual item. So I prefer to say remove the easiest, the most obvious stuff first. So I'll remove all the MLCCs, all the tantalum capacitors, and then once I've got all them, that's it. I don't have to touch tantalum capacitors again. Okay. I'll just all right, so there we go. Just take out the little inductor. So on closer looking, it's, you know, inductors that look like MLCCs are usually, you know, kind of darker. They're, you know, sometimes they're very black, or usually a lot darker than MLCCs. Like, so that's, we know that's an inductor because I saw the letter L. Okay, and so that's an MLCC, and see, you can even see there the difference that, you know, MLCCs are more browny grey, and inductors tend to be a little bit darker. But, you know, it's very hard to tell once you've taken them off the board. And so, you know, in some cases MLCCs are also quite dark. I don't have a sample here, but anyway, so we've got all the tantalum capacitors, so we can just get rid of them now and we're done with them, you know. And so I know that these are inductors. Now if you want to take these for silver recovery and you know that they're inductors, well, you know, don't put them in with your MLCCs, because you're not going to go, you know, because it's just a waste of material to put in, you know, because you're going to be, with these, we're going to be going for the palladium first. And sometimes, you know, we might even have to sacrifice the silver. So there's not, you know, guaranteed we're going to get the silver out of these MLCCs as well as the palladium. But we're going to try. So if I take off these inductors, I'm going to put them in a separate little tray, just marked as inductors. So then at least when I've got a pile that one day when we do go to process inductors, you know, and try and get silver, you know, that's all I'm going for. And I'm not wasting material and acids to get for trying to get the palladium when there is no palladium. So it's pointless. And so this is one of the things when it comes to buying MLCCs, is that a lot of these inductors are going to be mixed in with most people that are wanting just to sell. So if you're removing MLCCs for your own precious metal recovery, you're obviously not going to put in inductors in with your pile, because you're just going to mess it up. So they're all just the inductors, okay? Now, you know, if you're just picking up because you're intending to recover palladium from MLCCs one day, you'd be silly to put these inductors in with your MLCCs if you know that they're actually inductors, you know. But people that, you know, are picking off MLCCs to one day sell, and that's probably a lot of them, because most people aren't going to be able to recover that palladium anytime soon. So if they go to sell, you know, they're picking off MLCCs just to sell, they're going to want to increase the volume as much as they can, you know, and so they're going to throw these in there just because it's going to give them more weight. And you're not going to really tell. If I put these in with MLCCs, you're really not going to tell once you've got, say, a few pounds of MLCCs and you've got some of these inductors mixed in. I'm not going to be able to find them, and neither are you. So that's you know, where people will try and get away with it and throw these in with MLCCs. So, you know, it's very hard to buy MLCCs, especially anywhere near what you think you can get out of them. You know, it's more like 10% or 15% of what you think the value is. That's what you should be paying, because I guarantee that people that are picking off MLCCs are going to be throwing in a lot of inductors, especially people that that start off at the start. They're going to have, you know, so even if you buy MLCCs even if you pick your own MLCCs and you're pretty certain that you've got a really good, you know, batch of MLCCs, you know, you can pretty much guarantee that 5% of your MLCs that you pick are going to be inductors. And you can pretty much guarantee that probably 20 or 30% of the MLCs that you're going to pick, if not more, are not even going to be noble metal MLCCs. They're going to be base metal, so they won't even have palladium in there. It'll just be, you know, copper and nickel and so on. And so, so even then, so even if you're 100% sure that they're all MLCCs, there's still no guarantee that they're actually going to be noble metal guaranteed, you know, MLCCs. So, okay, so these are just inductors, and, you know, we put it, you know, we can put them separate as silver recovery, but you wouldn't put these with anything else. If you're going to go for the silver out of these, you just want to keep your inductors separate and process away. So, okay. All right, so going over this board, I can't see any MLCCs. So, you know, it's unusual, but that's how it goes. So even here, they're all L. So these are all just inductors. So they obviously didn't need MLCCs on this board. Instead, they used tantalum capacitors, right? Because they're both capacitors. And so the other side, I'll do the same thing. I'll remove all these tantalum capacitors off there. Now, over here, we're probably going to have, yeah, see, again, I can see we do have some, see here, we've got a tantalum capacitor. That next one is an inductor, L, and that one is a MLCC, a C. So they almost look identical, right? Those two MLCCs, but they're not. So this is where it's really helpful, you know, if you're depopulating boards for your own precious metal recovery, is to do it by hand. And so we know that these pulse things are just basically high pot transformer kind of things. They've got copper coils inside, even these ones here. So they look like IC chips, but they're not. Even this one here, it's, yeah, this one's most likely an IC chip. It could be a MOSFET, but it doesn't really matter. It's really, you know, you're not really going to be able to tell straight off the bat. But it's always a good idea to just bust stuff open and have a look for itself. But as we know, IC chips don't, you know, always have gold, and a lot of them don't have many precious metals in there at all. If you're lucky, you might get silver. So even if you pick off something that looks like an MLC, like a IC chip, and you put it in, it doesn't really matter, because it's still going to be processed in the same way, and we're still going for the same metals. So I just don't, it's hard to know how much the camera actually is picking up. I've got to get a better tripod or something, a little table tripod. So, okay, so then, so assume we're just doing this side of the board. I've taken off all my tantalum capacitors. I know that anything that looks like an MLCC is actually an inductor. That's big enough to actually see. And so all we really want now is the chips. And so I do all my flat packs. You know, you can take them off however you like, you know. Like, a lot of the time I just find it easier just to twist them off like that. And it's about the quickest way. And so that's a really nice little IC chip, flat pack, or whatever you want to call it. And you know, so let's just get in here and just break it up and see if we can actually see something. This one's probably not going to be very, it's a bit too strong. We'll try and break it and just to see if we can. Wow, this one's. So this is what I recommend with a lot of stuff that you don't really know what you're taking off, is just have a look inside, and you know, after a time you'll pick up whether it's going to be good or whether there's gold in there or what, you know. And so okay, so this is just like a it's a copper top. Okay, it looks like it's kind of like ceramic or plastic, but it's actually, this one's copper. And okay, so check that out. Look at those bonding wires. Hang on, just make sure. I don't know if the camera is really picking up, but you can see all these bonding wires in there. So obviously we know we've got gold here because I can see we've got, you know, it's copper leading up, and then it starts with beautiful gold. Okay, so this is probably one difficult thing is being able to process, you know, being able to tell the difference between what's ceramic, what's a plastic, what's a copper top. So in this case, you know, if we put this in an incinerator to pyrolyze it, it's just going to end up like this. It's just going to stay like that, and so hopefully by then this has actually fallen off the IC chip. But anyway, we'll get to the main end. Now, I wasn't really expecting this to look this good. I was expecting it to look like silver, and I was going to say, oh well, there's definitely silver in there, or probably platinum. But as you can see, you know, you can see this round band ring around here, and you can see the copper there, but you can, you know, I'm sure you can see the gold bonding wires all through it. So this is quite intense, and it's quite, you know, quite a good chip actually. It's like a lot of these the bonding wires that you see that are leading outside of this and joining onto this part. See those ones in the middle there? You know, that's most likely pure gold, right? Because they're so fine, they usually just make this out of pure 24 karat gold. Sometimes it's 22 karat gold. And here we've got the silicon chip. So you crush this up a bit. But yeah, so in the silicon chip and around here, we're most likely going to have silver that contacts from the gold, or it could be platinum. But there's no question, you can see all that gold. Look at that, you know, and that would go right around. And so that chip alone is, you know, quite surprising actually. I really didn't expect that to come out of it. So it just goes to show that when you're doing these higher grade boards, that one board to the next, it can be completely different, okay? And one chip to the next can be completely different. This one was obviously the main logic sort of IC or whatever it was, kind of like maybe the CPU. I'm not really sure, but you know, it's you know, it's silicon. It's yeah, it's, and this base is also just a copper kind of base. But yeah, interesting. Okay, so we'll get one of these next size down. Well, that was not actually the CPU. It's some sort of logic chip, because I can see the CPU here. Okay, I'm sitting down, so another way to do it when you're sitting down is just to skim 3 sides with a screwdriver, right? And it's another easy way. Okay, so this one is ceramic, so be able to sort of break into it. It's going to be a little bit, you're not going to be able to see it all. Yeah. So I can see mostly copper in there. And again, that little plate there, it's most likely going to be platinum. I can't think of it being really anything else other than platinum. Well, it is ceramic, so it might be silver, but you know, as I keep saying, there is no reason why they would step down from gold down to tin. You know, it has to be at least silver, and if not platinum. There's really no real reason why it wouldn't be. So this is just what I'm saying, whereas people say, oh, there's no gold in a lot of these chips. Yeah, because that's because there's platinum and silver. So these are a lot harder to get in, but you know, we're going to have gold, well, we're going to have bonding wires in there, but you know, a lot of times they can just be copper bonding wires. And again, we've got the bit of copper, and then the silvery part, well, it's got to be at least silver. So I'm just saying, you know, got to get away from the idea that all we're going for here is gold recovery, because there's a lot more to it. So here we've got this is the actual CPU, the i960. It's a very small version, and these are the board, you know, surface mount i960. There's also just your regular ceramic CPU type of i960s. So these ones here aren't as good as the ceramic ones that we remove from CPU slots, but we'll take it off and okay. So the i960, right? And again, and a good idea is if you've really got time, say if you're only getting a couple of boards at a time, and you know you've got all the time in the world, and a good idea is, you know, you see me grind away these legs. Well, on flat packs you can just sort of bendy and they just come off. And that's a good idea, just to get rid of them, because that's just going to be base metal. It's never going to be silver. Okay, so you might as well just get rid of it and clean the IC chip straight away. And that's just, you know, less material you're going to have to deal with later on. And all right, and so let's crack into one of these i90s. Okay, so remember, this is the CPU, okay? And again, we're not going to, because it's ceramic, we're not going to be able to get a good view of the bonding wires inside. But you can just see that, well, okay, I just got a little glimpse of gold in the bonding wires. So yep, we've definitely got gold bonding wires in here. We treat these just like any ceramic CPU. And I can just get this open. Okay, if I can get it under. All right. So here we got, could be anything, so it's really hard to tell. The only way you could do is you could start off doing like a silver test, just using the silver testing solution and drop it on there and see if it reacts like silver would react. And then maybe, you know, if there's any way of doing a platinum test, you could test for platinum. Okay, so if you could see, there's gold here, and it's also like silicon. And so, like I said, this is a CPU, and you know, we can't see a whole heap of gold, so there's got to be something else other than gold. It's a CPU, so it's not going to just run, you know, run on tin. It's got to be a precious metal. I'll just do one of these just in case you're wondering, if you haven't sort of opened one of these pulse things. Now, there's not to say that there's no traces of precious metals. There could be a trace of silver in there for whatever reason, you know, and even within the bonding wires. But yeah, when did... Okay, well, that was a bit weird. The camera just turned off, and there was a message on the camera saying too hot, shutting down. It's about as hot as you can get today, and I'm starting to struggle a bit to stay focused here, but I just had to let the camera cool down. You wouldn't believe, it's actually about, today it's in the 40s, so I don't know, it's like in the hundreds, probably about 150 degrees here today. Well, that's what it feels like. It's getting so hot. You know, I can just throw an egg on the ground and it'll fry up in 2 minutes. But so yeah, so I was getting on with these thick ones. So most of the time I don't even bother taking these off. I mean, because you can see these little coils of copper, and that's all there really is in there, you know. And like I said, there may be traces in some of them of silver and something, but you know, we're obviously not going to go for that because, you know, there's just so much base metal in this. So, you know, either you leave them on the boards, you could take them off and throw them into your copper bearing bucket, you know, like in with your transformers and stuff like that. But other than that, there's really nothing in there. Okay, so yeah, so all I'm, you know, really doing is I'm just sort of taking off all the main chips, pretty much boards like this. I depopulate completely, you know, so I remove everything, every chip that I can get, and so I just put these in with flat packs, and yeah, so again, it's just a straightforward board. We're just removing the chips. When it comes to all these little ones, you know, you might want to use an air hammer, but you know, you could always just go along with just a screwdriver or a chisel, you know, with quite a sharp point, you know, and just go around and knock them off like that, you know. Okay, well, the camera knocked out again. It was just getting too hot, so I had to wait a few hours to let it cool down outside here. So it's only about 100 degrees at the moment. So I think we should be right now. But yeah, I think I was up to taking off these little IC chips, and so yeah, even like, you know, I did mention using a air hammer, but you know, coming to think of it, you know, these little IC chips, if you hit them with an air hammer, they're just going to crush up, and you're not even going to sort of get to them. They're just going to end up as just basically crumble again, you know. So so yeah, this is basically it, you know. And you know, remember that, you know, we're depopulating and all that, and sure, we're going for precious metal recovery and stuff, but you know, it's we mostly do this, well, I do anyway. I suppose I can't speak for anyone else, but this is you know, downtime work, you know, or downtime hobby pleasure, if you like. You know, I certainly don't do this because I have to and I've got to get that gold and platinum and silver and all that. You know, I do this because it relaxes me, you know. I just enjoy it, and that's one of the reasons why I buy circuit boards now, is that it's not to make a profit on circuit boards. Some circuit boards, sure, I'll sell because I can't do much with them, like motherboards and stuff, but I mostly buy boards because I want to do this. I want to depopulate boards. I want to you know, get these the gold bearing items myself, you know. So yeah, and even though these are really tiny, and you know, a lot of these might not even have any precious metals, well, not, you know, gold anyway, or platinum, but you know, but they're still IC chips, and so we're just, you know, no matter whether they're this big or that big, it's still the same thing. So you know, we're trying to go for the, just take them off. If you're depopulating boards, you might as well get everything that you think is precious metals. And as I said, if there's stuff on the boards that you're not sure of, or you're not sure that there's anything in there, well, you can still keep them, especially when you get into high-end boards. As you can see, there's not much junk on these boards. So, and every component has got to have some kind of, you know, metals or stuff to make it function, you know. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with keeping stuff aside. Yeah, some things are going to be very difficult. For instance, okay, we know we've got gold pins in these jacks here, and that's fine. We can get them. We'll get the gold pins out, you know. But we've got LEDs here, and most likely there might be a bit of silver in there. But you know, some things are you know, have got so much other materials in there that, you know, you're going to spend a lot of you know, acids and stuff just to try and get that bit of silver, you know. And it's, at this stage, it's not worth it. But if you've got room to stockpile low value items like this, you know, in the future, if silver does go up very high, well then, yeah, it will be worth it. You know, it's 50 cents a gram at the moment. But, you know, if it was worth $5 a gram, then we'd start chasing it, you know, and start to recover silver from the less obvious stuff anyway. So okay, so yeah, as I said, there's not a lot on this to really, you know, nothing unusual. So all we're going to keep doing is just keep taking off our flat packs, small flat packs, you know. It all adds up, you know, especially in flat packs by weight, you know, they do weigh a little bit. So when you do build them up, it doesn't take long to get a pound of these. And before you know it, you got 20 pounds and then 100 pounds. And you know, just keep stockpiling it, you know. Don't rush out and say, oh, look, you know, here I go, I've got a tray of flat packs. Now I'm going to start going and looking for gold recovery or precious metal recovery. Well, we know that most backyarders aren't going to get all the precious metals out of it. So the best you're going to get is the gold, okay? And some of these, like this one, okay, where I can see the gold, we're going to get gold out of that, and probably most of them. But, you know, it's not going to change your life. You know, like getting a gram of gold, $40 worth of gold, or even $400 worth of gold. It's, you know, is it really going to change your life at the moment? So I'm just suggesting that, you know, you just keep stockpiling for long term. And even if you stop scrapping after a year or two and you go on to other things, you know, you might be in school and you know, eventually you get a job and, you know, get married or something like that, and things start taking over. But, you know, as I keep saying, you'll be really glad that you had your stockpile of IC chips and stuff for when you might come back to it. And I guarantee when precious metals go up in value, everyone's going to want to buy your stockpile anyway. Everyone's going to say, oh, you know, anyone got tantalum capacitors? I'm looking for tantalum. You know, anyone's got MLCCs? You know, I'm looking for MLCCs. And the more you, more experience you've got in MLCCs, the more likely your MLCCs are going to be of the better quality ones, because you know what you're picking, you know. And yeah, silver goes up, people are going to start asking around for crystals and crystal oscillators, you know. And well, IC chips and flat packs and BGAs, well, there's no question about that. Okay, go on something a little bit different. So this here, this is like obviously a telecom kind of board. It's a Cisco board. So when you find Cisco products, usually they're really high-end circuit boards. and probably Cisco is my favorite stuff. So you can even see here on the chips we've got Cisco, you know, so and the flat packs also Cisco. So I know that this is going to be a pretty good, you know, it's a good board, you know, and so again, it's one of those boards, you know, you certainly wouldn't want to sell. You want to depopulate this completely. And other side, you've got these little memory kind of IC chips, you know, you might want to put aside, you know, sort of off RAM and all kinds of boards. We've got little memory chips, which is just a very flat IC chip, and yeah. Because these are like a uniform in size and pretty uniform in the metals that we can recover from them, I like to keep these separate from IC chips alone. But so the same kind of deal. I just removed the obvious stuff at the start just to you know, get them out the way. So I'm going to go for my tantalum capacitors. And so here we've got a good example. So there's me tantalum capacitor. I'll go around this way. So we've got a tantalum capacitor here, okay? So we want them, and you can see the marking, it's C, okay? So C stands for capacitor, so obviously it's going to be a tantalum capacitor because there's no other capacitors that really look like that. You know, we know what they are. But this one, a lot of people get confused with, and they think, oh, is that a tantalum capacitor? The long ones. Look, there are some oddball sizes in tantalum capacitor. You get square ones, you do get some slightly longer, but usually they're, you know, kind of like that. But these are not tantalum capacitors, and straight away, you know, you just have to see that it's an R. Starts with R, so R stands for resistor. So straight away, it's not can't be a tantalum capacitor or any capacitor because it's a resistor. Okay, and but next to it you got RN. So RN stands for resistor network. So this is not just one resistor. This has got like 12 resistors inside. So they're only resistors, and yep, you know, we might be able to, you know, there might be a bit of ruthenium inside these. As I've mentioned, you know, a few times before, that ruthenium is very hard to get. Very hard, because it's not just pure ruthenium, it's a ruthenium oxide, and it's very difficult for anyone to get at the moment. But there are people that are getting it, very high-end refiners, and yeah, so the best I've heard of ruthenium coming out of this is, you know, it's about 90, I think it's about 99.5% ruthenium they're getting out of it once they process it and, I don't know, remove the oxide part. But it's just a very difficult thing, and ruthenium itself is very hard to sell unless it's 99.9% pure ruthenium, because then it's got some value to chemistry labs and medical researchers and all that sort of stuff. But and so yeah, forget about these. But you know, if you're collecting resistors, and you know, and say for instance the silver content, so you might not get the ruthenium oxide out of this, but you might get the silver. So it's another one of those things like the inductors that I was talking about, where we keep them separate just for silver, in case silver does go up a lot in value, where it's going to be worth going for anything that's got silver in it. We'll keep those inductors. So the same with these, you can keep these, but don't mix them up with your tantalum capacitors, because even though they've both got a little bit of silver inside, you know, this has got tantalum. It's 25% tantalum by weight, and we don't want to mix this ruthenium oxide with tantalum, because you know, a tantalum buyer will certainly not want to, will not appreciate getting resistors in with their tantalum capacitors. So don't confuse these. Forget about them. We're just going for the actual tantalum capacitors. And so yeah, very simple, you know. Obviously, you know, pretty much if you've ever had a circuit board slightly higher end or a slot card, you know what a tantalum capacitor is, and you know how to take them off. You know, there's, you know, it's not rocket science, you know, and depopulating boards and all that is, you know, nothing is really rocket science. You don't really have to know everything, you know, and you don't have to know what every little IC chip is, because they're not all IC chips. Some look like IC chips and they're something completely different. So we don't have to really know that, you know. We're still going for the main metals in there, and it's going to have something. And even if an IC chip doesn't have gold, well, either do, you know, there's no guarantee that this is going to have any gold in it, you know. So we just still get them all. So here we've got a really good selection. If I can just try and look in the camera at the same time. So we've got really good quality BGA chips here. Okay, they don't have the, you know, they've got a tiny little gold dot on the corner. So they're what we still call, what I call class 2. Okay, we've got these ones here with the copper top. So no gold corner, it doesn't really matter, but they got the copper top, so they're not really valuable. They're, you know, like a class 3. And over this side we've got the gold corner ones. They're a class 2 because they've still got that plastic stuff in there. And obviously we've got all these IC chips, flat packs, and again, so the BGAs are pretty straightforward, pretty easy. You can, depends on how you go. If you kind of do want a pretty sharp screwdriver, and they're just much easier just doing it by hand. You know, you probably best to do them in the corner. Sometimes not. But so remember, when you, in a lot of cases, the top part, the plastic sort of all breaks up, but in there is bonding wire, usually so fine that you can't even notice it. And admittedly, there are some that don't really have much in there anyway. But this is the main stuff that we want. Even though we can't really see the gold in this, you know, it's what we really want. And so just throw these in with your BGAs, no problem, because, you know, even if you sell your BGAs, everyone, you know, whoever buys your BGAs is going to expect to see a lot like that, where they got broken up and stuff, you know. But as long as within the mix you've still got the pieces that are broken up, so it just looks like you haven't removed the good stuff and just trying to get rid of the base, you know. So this one, that BGA didn't really want to come off very well. Normally they come off a lot easier, but see, this one's a very, very thin sort of base, and that's probably why it you know, was so hard to get off. And you can see the very fine wiring in there, the bit of gold and you know, like bonding wire that's very fine. It's kind of like almost stuck to it. So this part here is the lower grade, even though you can see the gold, and this one is probably not really that spectacular. There's not much there, and so it's mostly about the part that's on top. Okay, I'll try this way. Same thing, because it's so thin. These ones are going to be, so when you're knocking them off like that, you know, you want to be in an area where it's not all going to just get lost. And then, you know, there was silicon and stuff that comes with it, so get these tantalums off. Alright, obviously I do this a lot quicker when I'm actually depopulating, and you know, it's much more interesting because I'm not trying to show. And then we've got these other BGAs here, which are most likely a copper top. So because these are very, very low profile, they just don't come off very easily. So that's copper on top, okay? And underneath, you can see we've got that plastic, and then you can see the bonding wires in that star shape. And that is bonding wires within that kind of like fiberglass. And there's just a little sort of like a ceramic-y kind of cap on it. But see if we can sort of get a better look at what we got here. Just trying to, when I go to put the videos together and that, and a lot of times I don't really see what I'm doing, so then I end up right down here and I'm sort of talking about something and you can't even see it in the camera, you know. Okay, so that little black part there, so it's kind of like a little ceramic chip, and you know, no point in trying to get into that, so I'll just throw that in with flat packs. And so you can see this plastic material, and within that plastic material we've got the gold bonding wires running all through that, and so in this case, you know, most plastic or wire doesn't, you know, it might look like gold, but it's not really gold, whereas these ones here, because they're coming out of the BGA, these are gold. And so these would be processed, you know, I'm not really sure how we would process these, but we've got to obviously get rid of that plastic to get to those bonding wires. So maybe in pyrolysis it might come out, but it's only with these ones, the copper tops, and usually when you open them up they look like that, they've got the star, and that's definitely gold bonding wires. So, but I put these in to class 3. So there's another type there. We've got the silicon chip there and all that stuff. And these ones here with the copper tops. So they're not as valuable, even these, you know, they're all got copper tops. They're a different makeup to your regular BGAs. So they're only class 3 and worth quite a lot less than a class 2 or 1. We got, well, get the class 2 ones, the nice ones. Okay, so these are, you know, usually the ones that we really want, gold corner chip. But again, it's not about the gold corner chip, because if we remove that, okay, so that gold corner, it doesn't really mean anything, you know. But in this case here, you know, we've got quite a nice piece of gold wiring going through here. Can't get it out. You know, and underneath it's on, you can see the red, it's on copper, so it's going to be copper, then a little bit of nickel, and then the gold on top. But you know, these ones are definitely, you know, pretty good value, and they're just like 2 pieces of wire wound around. And so when we go to process these, obviously in a solution, you're going to eat away the, you know, like hydrochloric acid and so on. It's going to eat away the copper and the nickel, and we're going to be left with gold foils from there. But this is still the main part. Usually within there we should have a whole range of gold bonding wires, but again, don't discount. Yeah, they're very, very tiny, so you know, I can't even see them with the naked eye. So, but there's stuff in there, and yeah, don't be surprised if there's, you know, we've still got platinum and silver to get out of stuff like this too, so it's not just about gold. another Cisco flat pack. So far all the chips were Cisco branded. Let's see if we can have a look in this. So we can see bonding wire in here, but they're predominantly copper. I don't see any gold on the bonding wire in this one. And I don't always expect to see gold when I'm opening up, looking at flat packs anyway. So yeah, it's definitely just copper bonding wires. Okay, and we can see that plate under there, that's copper predominantly. And on that side, can't see any gold. So we most likely got silver plating, probably even platinum. So, so even though it is a Cisco board and it's a high grade board, it doesn't necessarily mean gold is just going to stand out to us. Okay, so we're going to remove the rest of these. The resistor networks, it's up to you whether if you've got nothing better to do, and as I said, if you don't get that many boards and you're going to depopulate the whole lot, just put them aside. But it's not something most people will go for. So don't ever expect to say, go online and say, hey, I've got a pound or 10 pounds of resistor networks that I want to sell, because no one's probably going to really go for them, because because it's mostly only silver, and the fact that the ruthenium oxide will get will mix in with that, it's just going to make it very difficult. But for long-term stockpiling, hey, why not? Other side, we've just got a couple more tantalums, and we want to take off all these chips. These kind of chips, again, because they're low profile chips, quite hard to take off with the air gun. It's going to kind of smash them all up, so the best way, this is quite an old screwdriver, but if you've got ones with a good corners on them, sharp corners, you just run your bloody screwdriver along. You get the idea. We're still on track, yep. And then just jiggle them off. So yeah, it's the sort of thing, it's a great downtime work, and see, these are all very uniform, and they're the flat memory kind of IC chips. So you can put these in with the memory type chips if you like. That's if you keep them separate. Most people just have all the IC chips in one, usually separate the flat packs in another, and obviously the BGAs, where you can keep them all your BGAs in one, or you can separate into different grades. Okay. So we've got these kind of telecom boards. Now, these boards actually just came in today. Halfway through doing this video, a guy came in and dropped off. I bought about $400 worth of boards off him today, and these were part of it. And he actually does gold recovery himself, but all he recovers from is the easy stuff, the gold fingers. So, he scored a whole lot of these boards. They're a telecom kind of board, they sort of just slot in, and he just removes these gold fingers because he knows that these gold fingers are about the best. Very similar to like these boards. You can see those gold fingers. They're the best gold fingers you can get. These on these kind of boards. They're just just loaded with gold. Really good value, and he knows that too. And he takes off these gold fingers, and he's happy just to sell the rest to me. And I still buy these at either either, depending on the boards, they're either server grade or still at telecom grade, even though he's taken off the fingers. So in this case, all we're really talking about is IC chips. So that's all we're going to do, is just remove all these IC chips, and a lot of these won't have visible gold again. It's all going to be about, you know, whether it's silver or whether it's platinum. Break it. Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't very good. Let's see if we can get another one. Okay. So yeah, and on these older boards, these legs, they're very, very tough legs. They're really thick, and so that's, by weight, that's quite a lot of junk material if you don't remove them. And like, I prefer to grind these off because it's a lot of material you got to eat up in your acid solution before you even start. So, but it depends, you know, like, it's up to you. These are so small that it's very time consuming to actually get that. So I'm not gonna, you know, we're not gonna see any visible gold here. They're just so small. Well, I say a lie. So okay. So that, you can see that little gold bonding wire there, and it's gold, it's not copper, it's certainly not brass. Okay, so we do have gold in these chips, and it's not just that, that's just one wire. There's another one there. So yeah, these are actually, being so small, I'm quite happy that there is, I can see visible gold. So we're going to get gold out of these 100%, and, you know, probably even silver and platinum. I don't discount the possibility of silver. Oh, definitely not silver, but I don't discount the possibility of platinum in any IC chips, especially if they're ceramics. And we'll get one of these plastic ones. Okay, I saw a glimpse. Yeah, so the little plate in there, you know, it's most likely, most likely going to be silver or platinum. Can't see much in that one. It's really hard with these. But what I was trying to do on these ones, or show you, is these kind of chips here. You know, like you got your, these are ceramic, almost like CPU kind of things, okay, but they're mounted on the board, and boy are they mounted. So that's them there, and you know, probably the only way to take these off cleanly is by using a desoldering iron or a soldering iron and desolder all these pins. So it's quite time consuming to, you know, dab at each pin to melt that away. You know, and using a heat gun, they're really, really tough, these ones, and you know, I doubt that you're going to get a heat gun that's going to sort of be good enough to take these pins off without burning the whole board, and that's quite toxic. You don't want to be burning this stuff just to get that pin off. So I recommend using a desoldering iron and desolder that, because when you go to, you know, I'm going to do one here, but when you go to actually, say, chip one off with a screwdriver or a hammer, this is all going to break up, and it doesn't really matter because, hey, you know, in the end, you're going to just, you know, it's probably just helps you in a way because it's going to crush up your ceramic and start the process off, you know. So it doesn't really matter. And so we've got, like, it looks like ceramic, and then, you know, there's like a gold top, and then we've got this cap up here. I'll see if this cap comes off. As I said, these just come in, so I haven't even looked, played with them or anything. We'll see how good these are, if at all. Oh wow. So here's our little cap. And even along the edge here, it's the ceramic, the top of the ceramic that's, so the gold that you can see is just the ceramic part that's chipped off. So there's still a little bit of gold on there, you know. So I might just keep this for a while, you know, throw this into reverse electroplating or something. Check this out, it's already done the job for us. And look how beautiful that is, you know. You know, so it's, we're not talking about this gold here, although this is gold, no problem. But it's all that gold in there, and I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up. It might just look like it's all sort of one piece gold, but it's all, you know, hundreds of tiny little whiskers, little wires, and that's all the bonding wires, each one. And these bonding wires are 24 karat gold. Okay, and they're very fine, but they're beautifully, you know, about as, you know, if they're not 24, they're 22 karat. So about as pure as you can get, and they're solid gold. So this is just gold plating, obviously over the top of something, you know, in this case it's over the top of ceramic, and most of the gold we get is gold plating on something. But when it comes to gold bonding wires, you know, they're so fine that there's nothing to actually plate them onto. They're actually just solid little piece of gold, you know. I might be mistaken, there might be gold bonding wires that have been plated on top of very, very fine copper wire, but no, it's pretty much, you know. And so we got the little silicon chip inside there, and you know, when it comes to ceramic CPUs, there's no question that there is platinum inside that. So within that thing there, we can see, like, I can see like silvery stuff, you know. There will be silver in there, but there's also platinum in ceramic CPUs. There's no question. I've seen the breakdowns of just about every CPU almost, and every one of them, ceramic I'm talking about, every one had a good portion of platinum inside. You know, and these are high-tech assay results, not just a backyarder, you know, doing tests to see if there's platinum in there. No, this is like the real expensive assaying kind of thing. And so in that silicon chip there, sure, we're going to have silicon, but I'm pretty certain we're going to have silver and most likely platinum just in that, but probably within the ceramic itself, because those bonding wires also go all the way through. So how do we get this out now? You know, well, as I said, it looks pretty like that, and it would be nice to have that as a whole just for a collectible, you know. So the only way to do that is desolder from underneath, but in this case I'm not going to worry about this one, and it's just very hard to do it unless you desolder either anyway, you know, because I'll show you, and it just doesn't really work because there's pins, double row of pins going around, and they're just mounted on really, really tough. So all we're really doing, we're just crushing up the ceramic, but that's fine because it's still, you know, the gold isn't going to go away, and you can see the gold on top on both sides. If I can get in there, you can see where my fingernail is. That's gold. That's the gold bonding wires in the middle of the ceramic. So it's loaded with gold in this case. So with these, and you can see underneath the little dobs, they're, you know, like BGAs, but they're not. But you know, all that's gold, and so, you know, obviously you want to keep these with ceramic CPUs, you know, the ceramic CPUs that you're going to process. So they go separate to anything else. And you want all your crumbles. So you want to kind of do this carefully if this is the way you're going to do it. But I recommend using a soldering iron and going underneath. But in this case, we're just going to sacrifice this one. You know, can't see much in that. Let me get this. yeah, baby. This is yeah, that's fantastic. As good as you're going to get. Beautiful. So you know, all that. So I hope, I doubt it will, but so it's not just like flashing or something like that. They're tiny little bonding wires, all right next to each other. So there's just a micromillimeter of a gap in between each bonding wire. All right. So even all the ceramic. So you want, I'm just showing you this, roughly. But even all the ceramic, we want to keep all of it. Even the fine particles, because you can see that little bit of gold flake that just popped out. Okay, so we want to keep all this and make sure we process all this ceramic as we would if it was a complete CPU. All right, so you just build it up, and that's fine if you have a jar where it's just broken up and crushed up ceramic CPUs, no problem, just as good as anything. Okay, so I'll get rid of the rest of this. Still going to be gold with that whole thing. So that was nice. And on this one we've actually got two. So if one's good, well, two's even better. So the same deal. So in this case, I'm not going to just chip them off. I'm going to go underneath here. See, there's 3 rows of pins. And so I'm going to try and desolder these pins and remove these, because I like to collect this kind of stuff myself as well as gold recovery. So, but worst comes to worst, if they don't come off easily, I'll break them off and we'll still get our stuff. All right. And also you got little switches here. So in these, they're usually, almost always got a little bit of silver contacts inside, but in a lot of cases they can also have gold inside them. So you can keep all your switches if you like. These little, LED lights and stuff, unless they've got gold legs and it's really obvious, well, it's just going to be possible a little bit of silver. It's really up to you. It's just one of those things, depending on your time.